As people across the globe are rising up against institutionalized racism and supremacy, Yemeni people are waking to the institutionalization of supremacy by codifying it into law. In early June 2020, the Houthi militia's de facto government controlling northern Yemen passed a racial taxation bylaw that entitles descendants of Prophet Muhammad, known as Hashemis, to 20% of the Yemeni state's resources and people's income and revenue. But who are the Houthis? And what are they fighting for? Let me give you a quick and brief introduction. Politically, Houthis control northern Yemen under a de facto government imposed since September 2014. Officially, they are known as Ansarullah, Partisans of God, an armed movement that was founded in the 90s and named after its founder, Hussein Badruddin al-Houthi. Legally, they are a non-state armed group who led a coup against the legitimate government. Historically, they are the revivalists of the dynastic totalitarian imamate regime that ruled northern Yemen under the claimed authority of God and the power of the gun. Dynastically, they claim to be matrilineal descendants of Prophet Muhammad, known as Hashemis or Al al-Bayt. Demographically, they come from the Hashemi dynastic group who settled in Yemen's north around 896 AD. Religiously, they stem from the Shia sect of Islam who adhere to the Zaydi Hadawi school of thought, exclusive in its existence and practices to northern Yemen. Ideologically, they follow the religio-political theory of Imam Yahya al-Hadi, founder of the Yemeni Zaydi Hadawi school of thought. This theory grants the Hashemis of Yemen a divine entitlement to rule the people, which entails political, economic, social, and intellectual privileges. On what basis? On the basis of matrilineal blood lineage to the Prophet. Studying different racist and supremacist regimes that existed in the US, South Africa, and Nazi Germany, one will find that the Houthis' religio-political ideology intersects in essence with all of them, as they all divide the society into superiors and inferiors on the basis of an innate human characteristic. For example, in the US and South Africa, the claim of supremacy was founded on the color of the skin and the notion that the white race is more advanced than the non-white. In Nazi Germany, the claim of supremacy was founded on blood lineage and the notion that the Aryan race is the master race over the non-Aryans. Likewise, in Yemen, the claim of supremacy was founded on matrilineal blood lineage to the Prophet and the presumption that the Hashemis are God's chosen masters over the non-Hashemis. This racial supremacy is the main motivation behind the Houthis' fight for power and the justification for their latest 20% racial taxation. Now, how does the international community approach the Houthis' claim of and fight for supremacy? They simply neglect it because they consider the Houthis' religio-political ideology as a matter of sectarianism, too alien to comprehend and too local to deal with. To be more specific, the international community approaches the Houthis through three lenses: the political pragmatics of de facto reality, the legal questionability of the conduct of war, and the historic sensitivity towards minorities. And here lies the dilemma. Why? Because the Houthis are from a minority that does not believe in an equal status with the majority, but rather in a superior status over the rest of the society. Let me give you a list of beliefs that promote the human status of the Hashemis to holy, ungodly, and worthy, at the same time demotes the human status of the non-Hashemis to unholy and unworthy. By no means it is a comprehensive list, but it gives you examples about the social, economic, political, and intellectual privileges the Houthis are fighting to gain and maintain at the expense of the rest of the society.
أنا ملزم بأن أؤمن بأن هؤلاء هم الذين اصطفى، وأمثلتنا تنضج بأننا في واقعنا مسلمين بقضية محمد وآل محمد أنهم هداة الأمة وقادتها.
In 2012, the Houthis published their manifesto wherein they declared that Allah has chosen the house of the Prophet to rule the people not on merit but on blood lineage, not for some time but until the end of time. The manifesto also declares jihad, holy war, as the means to acquiring political power and dealing out with any opposition to the ruling of the Hashimis.
عندما يرفعون عبيرتهم وصياحهم أن هذا القانون يكرس العنصرية، أي عنصرية؟ أنتم مؤمنون بالله، مؤمنون برسول الله، لا بد من التسليم لله والالتزام بأمر الله. هذا من باب الابتلاء الإلهي وليس هذا من باب العنصرية.
The latest 20% racial taxation imposed by the Houthis de facto government is the biggest manifestation of the kind of privileges they are fighting for.
وجوب الخمس في البترول والمعادن ما استخرج من الأرض، حتى في الشركات المعدنية، المياه المعدنية التي اليوم تستثمر وتدر عليها في المياه المعدنية تدر عليها أرباحا كما تعلمون خيالية. كل فئات ومذاهب المسلمين تقول بوجوب الخمس.
I refuse to follow up on this argument because any engagement with the debate over the religiosity or validity of such claim gives the concept of supremacy in and of itself some form of legitimacy to begin with.
الناس يميزون ذرية محمد صلوات الله عليه وآله بألقاب خاصة معروفون بلفظ سيد. في هذه آية إلهية لمن تأمل.
The titles Sada and Ashraf are the best illustration of the kind of supremacy the Hashimis have assigned for themselves. Sayyid means master. Sharif means honorable. By their technical definition, there is a racial connotation that explicitly assigns a superior status to the Hashimis, which is masters and honorables, and implicitly referred to an inferior status to the non-Hashimis, subordinate and deplorable, not to mention prohibition of intermarriage as a way to protect the Hashimis' genealogical purity, dress stratification as a means to distinguish their social presence in the public space, and demands of respectability and love as a condition to earn the love of God or the wrath of God.
آل محمد، آله يعني ذريته، هؤلاء هم المصطفين لوراثة الكتاب وأن يكونوا هم قرناء الكتاب.
All knowledge produced by a non-Hashimi is inherently flawed and unacceptable, and all knowledge produced by a Hashimi scholar is inherently valid, accepted, and considered as a source of law equivalent in its authority to the Quran and the claimed narrations of the Prophet. This is what the Zaydi Hadawi school of thought states. Accordingly, the Houthi manifesto declares the Yemeni Zaydi schools of thought as the source of law above the constitution and any governing legal regimes. It also prohibits any non-Hashimi form of opposition to their ideology or knowledge of the Hashimis. Through the previous examples, it becomes clear that the Houthis' religio-political ideology does not translate only into arbitrary intentions and attitudes, but also into actions and impacts that have historically and currently shaped Yemen power dynamics, social fabric, and economic balance. So to restrict the Houthis' phenomenon to a political struggle and the religio-political ideology to a religious matter dilutes the essence of the problem, race-based supremacy. History has taught us that unless and until we address the essence of our problems, every solution will either fail or bring a system that is meant to fail. Ultimately, the only way to get around the Yemeni conflict is to call out the Houthi phenomenon by its truth, to give it a name and a definition, because language matters. On that note, the Houthi is a supremacist group, and the religio-political ideology is Yemen's original sin, Hashemi supremacy.